Okay, let's get right into the stock market technical analysis. We're going to go ahead and look at some of these top mega cap tech stocks. We'll look at the broad markets, any other individual trade ideas. We obviously take a look at that, and then we'll wrap up. Guys, if you're finding value in the content, please drop me a thumbs up. If you're interested in learning this as a skill set, check out my stock market technical analysis course. Link in the description below. And finally, I've been pretty active in the private member group. But I haven't putting out as many public videos. I'm just throwing out kind of trade ideas in the private member group. So if you're interested in a lot of that, link in the description below to join up on that. Again, I'm not going to get all the trades right, but the analysis that I give is usually looking for the large turns, the next trends, and oftentimes at the end of a trend, it's, most people are, if it's a bull trend, most people are raging bullish. They think that will continue forever. And then we look for signs of a turn. So in Apple, here's a pretty clear example. I talked about it for quite a while. We had a bearish rising wedge. All right. We came to the apex of the wedge. Apple was holding out for earnings, basically. So it just kind of floated there. But it had negative divergence on the daily chart, big negative divergence, telling me that this bearish rising wedge was likely about to break trend. Okay, and then boom, just big breakdown. So I talked about that, saying this chart is set up bearish. Doesn't mean it, didn't have to break when it did, but definitely was a bearish setup. So Apple, from kind of the highs, those most recent highs, Apple got all the way up to here. It's down 10% already from those most recent highs. And with likely more downside to come, you take the widest part of the wedge right here on this wedge, you go to the breakdown point, which is really right about there. And that's really setting Apple up for a move down to about 166.87 or so. Now we are at or near a support level. You can see that former reaction high right there. Okay. And that basically is right in there. So I think there's probably going to be a bounce, maybe a few day bounce. There's going to be dip buyers in Apple. But that doesn't mean, but the point is it's sell to rip now. The uptrend, this bearish rising wedge, we have a breakdown and a sell signal. So now as it rallies, if Apple rallies, you want to short into resistance. Right now there's a gap obviously to fill. Whether you do fill that gap, I'm not so sure, at least not right away, but maybe you do. And then you've got gap entry right in here. So those are two levels to potentially watch for a bounce. And then it looks like there's another level of support, which is now resistance about 182-ish. Okay, that's another former reaction high. So sell the rip in Apple is the name of the game. And if Apple is sell the rip, then triple Qs is likely sell the rip as well. So we'll flip over to that. Okay, on triple Qs, I have this blue trend line. This is basically coming, it's not really coming off the lows. We'll look at the futures as well. The lows, which really started this entire uptrend line, is really about right there, which would be marked in red, which tells me that there's potentially some more downside in triple Qs to hit that trend. But it's not a well-defined trend because we only have two data points. We have 1 and 2. So I can't say that's a clear, definitive target right now. The blue trend line, I had multiple reactions on the daily. You can see 1, 2, 3. And as we had a reaction there. And we're breaking that today. So that is, that to me, it looks like a sell signal. Now, ultimately, I think you could get that kickback rally and backtest maybe once, and that would be consistent with Apple probably catching a little bid. But again, it should be sell the rip, all right? If Apple is going to continue to sell down, then triple Qs should continue to move lower as well. If I narrow it down to the hourly chart, one thing to take note of, obviously on the hourly, we do have, this is a divergent low on the hourly. You can see right here, we've got some bullish divergence there on the hourly. It's not confirmed, and we're continuing lower. So any lower, and we'll just burn right through that. It's not confirmed. It's nothing that I would really, it's not, I think maybe it could be good for a bounce, bounce back into about 372.80-ish would be a bounce level, but it still looks like a sell the rip pattern to me. Okay, and I want to flip over to the weekly chart. So on the weekly chart, again, this is you know, to me, I'm still sticking with the thesis that this was a bear market rally. Okay, we started a bear market back in, you know, the top was November, roughly November on the weekly chart in triple Qs of 2021. Had several rallies within that first leg lower, and this is definitely a big, strong bear market rally. But I think we are at or near the highs. Go ahead and Google a chart of a bubble, and you'll see that basically it lines up pretty accurately with this. You've got kind of a big, strong blow off top. You have the first leg down. Then you have this kind of first kind of rally where people think, oh, the worst is over. We're on to a new bull market. And then that's kind of when the bottom really starts to fall out. So we'll see. That's kind of, you know, it's a ways off. We're looking at a weekly chart. But what I do want to narrow in on this weekly, if I zoom in right here, last week, bearish engulfing. All right, that's a bearish engulfing candle on the weekly chart. So far this week, we are seeing more selling. So the week's still early, but ultimately, if we see some more selling this week, that's confirmation. All right, so this bearish engulfing is a reversal candlestick, and if we see more selling this week, it's confirmation. It's signaling that the top of this rally is in, and we've started to reverse trend. So keep that in mind. That's very key on the weekly chart. This is signaling a potential the end of this rally and maybe the next leg lower in an ongoing bear market. If that's true, we're very likely going to take out the lows right here, head lower, and ultimately I think we'll head down to this next level right down there at 169.06. Looks like a pretty decent level. Also, you know, my level right here, 238 on, those are your pre-COVID, kind of your pre-COVID highs. I think you get a reaction there too. So those are kind of key levels. But the next leg lower in an ongoing bear market would very likely put us, and it's going to take time. It's not going to happen, you know, tomorrow or the next day. Obviously, it's going to take. This is probably going to play out over the, you know, the next year or so, 12 months, or, you know, we're on a weekly chart, so this is a longer time frame. So bigger picture, we do have a reversal candlestick. So far this week, we've got confirmation that's likely going to signal, you know, a lot lower prices here in the future. Okay, Nasdaq futures. These are a little cleaner of a chart than triple Qs. And if I zoom in, you can see we've got the lows right down here. We've got a reaction here. We've got one there, and we're coming down into support. Maybe a little bit more downside, but getting close to support. So you're probably going to get a bounce here, guys. I think it makes sense that, you know, if you've been shorting this drop, then I think a little bit more downside, maybe another 0.5% or so, and we're probably going to see that bounce. Okay, if we don't, and we obviously just break right through this support line, then it is, you know, that's a longer term sell signal. But I could see what I think is probably going to happen. You come down, and then maybe we'll trade for a couple days, kind of grind higher, and then ultimately here in the near future, get that longer term sell signal. Amazon. So Amazon obviously popped up post earnings right into key resistance, and I did in the private member group pointed out that we are basically hitting key resistance about 143.72. If I roll out on the daily, it's kind of a, you know, lots of reactions on this level. You can see here, look, support, 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 chop through it a little, but still kind of gapping through it. Resistance, resistance, several reactions. So post earnings, we gapped right to that resistance level, and it was a new divergent high. You can see here, still have the negative divergence. Look at the RSI starting to turn down right here, confirming that divergence. PPO hasn't crossed over or turned down yet to confirm that, but I think it's very likely. And yeah, I mean, we just gapped right up. So in the private member group, I said, look, it's objective to short right here. And this was the day of earnings when we were right there at resistance. I said, it's objective to short here. Nobody wants to short Amazon when it's up 10% or whatever. But it was oftentimes the up days right into resistance are the best entries for short positions. And if you did enter, you'd be you'd be profitable by about 3% so far. So we'll see how that one goes, but I think that's likely going to continue lower. And then Microsoft looks like it's coming into some support. So again, you've got support, support. This is the daily chart, and we're right there. So Microsoft's, coming into support. Again, I think we're going to get a bounce here. That's kind of the way I'm leaning. But if we don't, that's telling us something about the market. And remember, back to that triple Qs chart. We have just come off a pretty impulsive move up, and we've just started that reversal candlestick on the weekly chart. So bounces very likely will be sold into. Okay, so let's look at the banks. Banks are getting sold into today. There was a downgrade on the bank sector. So I'm looking at JP Morgan because, again, this is kind of the leader. I don't see any real signs of any real trend change. I mean, here's your lows back in October of 2022. I've got several reactions holding support. We're right here, so we can easily come down to that trend line, but that's still support. And then again, no real clear signs of negative divergence. You've got relatively bullish momentum and no real clear signs of negative divergence. So no trade for me on this one. I think if it comes down and starts to, ultimately if it breaks the trend, that would be a sell signal. But until then, it could just be a pullback to that support line. Commodities. So wheat's my favorite, for the most part. It just has a pretty clean chart. Here's the wheat ETN. Again, holding that support line. And right now, we've got an uptrend. All right, so here's the thing. Bigger picture, you've got a bullish falling wedge. We talked about this for a while. Breakout, back test, double, another kind of move up. Didn't quite break out. Got rejected at the 200. So the first breakout, they sold into it right before the 200. Second move up, got above the 200, but they sold into it right at that 200. Pulling back to what looks to be support, and we have the start of an uptrend. So you'll see here on the daily, we've got a low, I've got a reaction, and I now have a third reaction. Okay, 3 data points equals a trend, and I have higher lows, and so now we need to go make a higher high. So that's what I'll be looking for next. Nothing's wrong with this chart. Still looks like we have an uptrend. I don't think we're going to get another backtest of this trend line down here. It's possible, but as of right now, not probable. So I still think we are going to rally, taking out the highs, and ultimately working our way up to about $8 on wheat. Okay, I like 8 because you've got a reaction high right here. You've got a reaction high right there. So that would be my next move up in what looks to be the start of an uptrend. And here's the 10-year Treasury yield. Well, it does look like we're getting that pullback. So again, bigger picture, the trend is higher rates. All right, you can see there's COVID lows, support. We got support, multiple reactions, little pullback today. So I think, and if it continues to pull back maybe to the trend line, that would maybe justify that small bounce in triple Q. So maybe that's going to play out. But bigger picture, still holding the uptrend line. And that tells me we're likely going to go higher. Now, we do have divergence right now. You'll see here on the daily, we have negative divergence just starting to show up. So that was a divergent high. It's not confirmed yet, though. So we'll see. We could have, and I'm leaning this way. I think we probably get another thrust higher and ultimately pop above these most recent highs here. And that should usher in some major selling in the stock market. So we'll keep an eye on that. If we don't, maybe we just get up to there, put in a divergent high, and then get rejected and start to sell down. That's possible as well. The charts will be our guide on that one. Okay, and here's a trade idea. Fastly, FSLY. You can see here on this daily chart. Bearish rising wedge, all right? We just cleared earnings, and they popped it on earnings, all right? Popped it up. So you can see there, it's just above the top of the wedge. To me, that looks like a stop clearing move. Now, what I'll be looking for is a break back into the wedge, and then ultimately you're probably going to head down to the bottom. Maybe bounce there, and then a break of that wedge would be the more longer-term sell signal. I think it's coming. We have negative divergence. We've got big negative divergence that just keeps extending. You can see here, we basically just keep extending that divergence. Here it is. So the divergence really started to show up. That's a divergent high. Then that's a divergent high. There's another one. There's another one. 4 divergent highs. And we've just cleared earnings. We just have that weekly reversal candlestick, the bearish engulfing on the triple Qs. This is a tech stock. So I think it's this thing's probably ripe to start to break down. And so, yeah, that's what I'll be looking for. There's a trade setup. Looks like a good one to me. Okay, I'm going to get the video out. I'll wrap it up. Guys, drop me a thumbs up. Check out the course. Check out the private member group if you're interested only. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Bye.